like I wish you would have told me that.
I told you after the fact.
Yeah, I know.
I did.
But it makes it kind of like, man, do I really want to work for them?
It just really pissed me off.
Yeah.
You know? Whether it was, somebody that had just that.
They accused me of stealing once.
No.
Yeah, they did.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding at all. Hey, and welcome to Hey TRA episode 2. Hey TRA is a YouTube series that I created intended for TRAs, transracial adoptees, made by a TRA. The goal of this series is to help TRAs navigate race and identity together. Today, I'm going to be using my time to interview my mama. When I say my mama, I mean my adoptive mother, Mary Lou Waylon Jackson. And so today I'm really excited because I get to ask her a bunch of questions about my adoption and about race and identity and how she's, learned and grown. So be sure to stay tuned to check it out. Also, I release new content every other Wednesday. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video if you think that it is awesome. Let's get to it. So my first question is, what led you to adopt in the first place?
The first time? Or...
Yeah, just like what
led
you to adoption?
In all honesty, had I gotten pregnant, we probably wouldn't have. But, after 5 years of trying and not, it finally hit me. And I think Dad was there before me, but I just felt kind of like my body was betraying me. It's like I suffered all those years of cramps and now I can't even have a baby.
Yeah.
This didn't seem fair. So, but I remember the day that it literally hit me that, what difference does it make? I want to be a mom and it doesn't matter how I become a mom. And I, the next day called. Somebody had given me the name of an agency, was a friend of a friend that I had met at a picnic. And so I called them and got the ball rolling. That was probably in, I want to say February of 86-ish. And there was a process, you had to go to an informational meeting and you had to send an application. And, it's a long process you have to go through. And then we finally got to where we were invited to attend what they call a home study group. Before you had your in-home study, we had a series of classes, maybe 4 weeks. Every weekend we would go down to Delaware, and that's where we met some people that we're still friends with. So that was what started the whole ball the first time.
Cool. Okay, yeah, so background, if you haven't seen my last video, I'm not the only adopted person in our family. So my eldest brother, Tyler, is also adopted. So that's what she means when she says, first time, I'm not the first time. So. Which adoption process was easier? So you adopted both internationally and domestically. Which one was easier and why?
Oh, definitely yours was easier. And I guess with international, you have a whole lot of other stuff. You've got at the time it was immigration and naturalization. Yeah. Now it's ICE, but so you have to jump through all those hoops. And you have some of the same process for both. You have to do a background check or child abuse clearance and fingerprinted, for the FBI. So if I ever do anything, my fingerprints are on file. But Tyler's took, like I said, I think we initially inquired in February, and that was of 85. That was of 85. And then Tyler wasn't born until June of 86, but there was a whole process in there where we had another referral and then that fell through, and so it was a little longer. So from start to finish, it was probably a year and a half from initial inquiry till baby in my arms.
Yeah, how about for me? How
For
long?
Hannah, oh my gosh. I really wanted another child, and unlike before, before we got Tyler, I had several miscarriages, and I knew the process of adoption, and I knew the fulfillment of adoption, and I already had one child, because backing up again, after Tyler, 6 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant, so God has a sense of humor. So I have, our 2 boys are just a year apart. So I knew the process, and I mean, I loved them both so much, it didn't really matter how I came about having them. I'm grateful that I got to have that, experience of pregnancy and birth. But I would have been okay had I not.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine not having Greg. But then with Hannah, I just always felt like I wanted another child. I never felt like we were complete. And Dad wasn't as on board as me.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, he would tell you now.
Yeah.
It was his idea. And I'm glad he talked me into it, but that's so not true. So I think I finally had to resort to tears. And then he gave in. And so, because he was saying, we have these 2 great kids. What's it, but I just, in my heart, I knew there was another child there for us. And I've always felt that, our kids were chosen for us. But anyway, so I think I made initial inquiry on that one in March of 92. She was born in June of 92. So you see,
a few months, yeah.
Had her in my arms in July. So at 3 weeks. So that one was really fast. And then our only stipulation was we wanted a child that we didn't want to disrupt our birth order. So she or he had to be younger than Greg, just because we wanted to keep that birth order.
And how old was Greg at the time?
Greg at the time was 4.
Okay.
One of the things we had to do was write an autobiography, each of us individually, and then we also had to write a letter to the birth mother, generic. Just dear birth mother, why we were seeking to adopt, and tell her a little bit about our family and that kind of thing. And then I guess the agency had an album that they kept pictures of, couples that were seeking to adopt or people that were seeking to adopt and their families and their letter. And then the birth mothers they were working with could look at those and kind of influence that decision, who was going to get their child. And that's how Hannah's birth mom picked us. And she, the paperwork that we have never actually met her in person, but all the paperwork that we had, because I think they wrote something to us too, was that she liked the fact, knowing that you were going to be mixed, that your birth father was black and she was white, and that she knew we already had one transracial adoption.
Yeah.
And, so we were dealing with that. And so she picked us.
Cool.
Thank you.
So that kind of explains the process and my birth mother choosing you guys. So I'll skip into more your takeaways from adoption. Okay, so what is the best thing about adoption? And what was the worst or most challenging, most difficult thing?
Well, let's tackle worst first. I can't really say there's a worst, because, you end up with this great kid, for the most part. But I guess there's a financial issue, obviously. I mean, that's not the be-all and end-all,
right.
But, we already had 2 little kids, and so we had to figure out how we were paying for this adoption.
Yeah.
We actually took out a home equity loan. The positives I would take is it's a wonderful way to build your family. I mean, there are a lot of kids that need homes, although that's not that wasn't honestly our motivation. It was more selfish. It was, you know, we wanted a family.
Mm-hmm.
And after the first time, you know, it was sort of like, well, sort of no brainer. You know,
Yeah.
we love Tyler so much, and you know, we love Greg so much, and one more kid, it, you know, it doesn't matter how.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. The reward is great, and my and Hannah knows this. I have a huge pet peeve about people that say when they find out we have adopted children, they'll say, "Oh, that was so kind of you. What good people you are." And I'm like, stop. You know what? We're the ones that really benefited so much. And it wasn't, I mean, not that it was done, you know, not out of the goodness of our hearts, but it was also very selfish. We wanted to have a family.
You weren't, in your mind, it wasn't like, this is an act of charity.
What altruistic thing can we do for the world? That wasn't it. But anyway, you know, that's just a good side benefit of it. But yeah. Anyway.
I think that's probably a good thing. I think people sometimes who go into it with the mindset of, oh, these poor children, I need to help.
No.
I think that's a very like deficit way of thinking about kids.
Totally agree.
So I think that honestly, even though it might have been selfish in your mind.
Yeah, and people would say, oh, aren't they lucky? No, we're lucky.
Yeah.
We're very lucky. So, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. What have you learned about yourself and about transracial adoption over the years?
Oh, so much. It was really, honestly, never much of an issue when you were kids. You just, you know. I mean, people do ask stupid questions, but that's another whole subject.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Hannah was always a really easy kid when she was growing up. Her biggest period of angst, and hence clashing with us, more me, was when she was a teenager. Yeah. And it was because all of a sudden, maybe it wasn't all of a sudden, but it seemed like all of a sudden to me, all of a sudden she didn't feel like she belonged in her peer group that she'd grown up with, you know. You know, and then it came to dating, and there were really not very many black boys in our high school at all. There were a couple. And like she said, well, all the black boys date white girls, so, you know. So she felt like they all sat together at lunch, but she didn't really fit there. She didn't feel like she fit there anyway. Yeah. But anyway, so she's taught me a lot. And I think your biggest awakening probably was when you went to college, which hence was my biggest awakening when she went to college and found herself. Yeah. Because she would come home and talk about it, and she'd bring friends home, we'd go visit, and we'd go to church with you. She started singing in the gospel choir, so she started going to this church out there, and we started going, and you know, it's really eye-opening when you're the minority. Yeah. You don't think about it. You know, you don't think, oh, I'm not racist, but you have always been the majority. And you know, we started going to this church, and like we'd be the two white people. There might be one or two. There might be one or two more, yeah. But primarily black, and very warmly accepted. A lot of them were students, you know, but their pastor, wonderful, warm, loving guy. I really, really, you know, consider him a friend. I think he's been a great mentor to Hannah and my son-in-law and lots of other students. But it was eye-opening for me, and it was in a good way. Yeah. In a good way. And so I've had the opportunity to be in that situation much more since she's went to college and been an adult, because, you know, obviously Brett's black, so his grandmother comes and stays with us. She's black, you know, and you know, just they're a lot of their friends, and you know, I think about when we went to Natalie's birthday party, their friends whose little girl turned 1, and you know, we seriously were the two white people there in this great big picnic of black people, and I did not feel uncomfortable at all. But you know, we knew a lot of the younger people anyway. Yeah. So you know, I really think racism and whateverism, people are afraid of what they don't know, and if they take the time to assimilate into that or
Get to know.
Get proximate with people who are different than them, you find out really we're really pretty much the same because we have a lot of the same issues. We all have our kids and love our kids and want what's best for them. We all have issues with our jobs. We all have, there are things obviously that people of color experience that we don't, but I'm so much more aware of it now. So
can you think of like one instance that was like, whoa, I get it? I mean, maybe in like, one of my questions is, having non-white children, what have you learned about your white privilege? And if you could think of like one instance that was like, wow, I get it. This is like something that I benefit from. That
I think it was a gradual process of realization, but there have been instances, and there continue to be, like when we go somewhere as a family, we get a lot of stares. We went out to dinner recently. Was that when Greg or Caleb and Dad were up in State College, I think?
Yeah.
We went to dinner. So it was Hannah, Brett, me, and the baby. And people just kind of look at you weird, like, what's this black couple doing with this old white lady, I'm this mom.
Right.
So I think we get a lot of inquisitive stares and not necessarily negative, but there have been times when we've been out and I see people looking at us and I just want to go over and smack them and say,
right.
Wipe that look off your face.
Right.
This is my family.
Right.
And they have as much right to be here as you do. And so that kind of thing. I remember the time we were at the lake and I got really incensed because we asked about hot dogs. Remember, it was a self-serve thing. And she's like, you'll have to wait. We're making them. I'm like, okay. And so they're waiting. And then this other woman comes up. 2 other women came up that were white. And she's like, oh, yes. Which one would you like? Would you like the dark one? I was like, what the hell? And they're like, Mom, chill. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, it's a big deal. It really ticked me off, but it made me realize how much I take for granted and that they deal with those little microaggressions all the time.
Yep.
That I don't. And that's not fair. I worked part-time when I was having my empty nest syndrome. I worked part-time in a grocery store and they were looking for cashiers, and they were really good about accommodating high school students' schedules. So my cashier manager said, anybody that knows anybody that's looking for a job, have them apply, let us know. Because the process was you would go through the initial thing at their HR, and then they would bring you into the store to interview with the manager. So I told Hannah, because she wanted a job, and it was like she had just turned 16, so it was like, you had to be 16. So she applied, and she went for her initial interview, and her name, Momma Jackson. Like she says, Hannah's like the whitest name. I'm sorry, Hannah, but anyway.
It's a pretty name. It's just unfortunate that it's really not a popular.
Like a Hannah Joe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she went for that. She told me it went fine, and then she left, and I had told my manager, and so I was waiting for her to get called in for an interview in the store. And every day I'd be there, and I'd see all these kids coming in. They'd be like, "Hey, Miss Jackson," but my daughter never got a call, and it really pissed me off.
I remember that.
And so you don't remember that?
I don't.
Well, at the time I didn't really tell you about it, but I told you about it after the fact.
Okay.
Because anyway, she wasn't getting called. It was, and then it wasn't just me. It was like other people I worked with would say, I thought your daughter applied. When's she coming in for an interview with the manager? And I said, I don't know. I keep waiting and we're not hearing. And other people that knew me in the store would say, you don't think it's because she's black, do you? I mean, so it wasn't just me having that internal question that I said, I don't know. So one morning before I went to work, I called the HR department and I talked to the HR director. And I told her, and my daughter, and I didn't say my daughter's black, I just said my daughter applied for a job and she came for her initial interview, and I keep waiting for her to get called back into the store, and she's like, well, she mustn't have done good on her math test and I'm like, no, she did fine. They told her she did fine. Well, and I said, she goes, let me check into it and get back to you. Are you working today? And I said, yeah. So she said she would call me back at the store. So I waited all day and I hadn't heard anything. And so when I went to lunch, I called again. And this time I was feeling more brazen because I got her voicemail. And so I told her who I was again. I said, we talked this morning. I was asking about my daughter. And I said, I don't know if you know this, but my daughter's black. And I'm not saying that that's why she hasn't been called, but I'm saying the thoughts occurred to me. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't occurred just to me, but it's occurred to a lot of my coworkers who've asked me, do you think the reason Hannah hasn't gotten called is because she's black? And it really got me thinking, let's look around here. How many black people work here? None. So I said, I don't want to believe it's because there's some kind of a racial thing going on, but whether there is or there isn't, there is a perception that that's what's going on.
Right.
So I just thought I'd let you know. So I left that day, I got home, I walk in the door and she's like, Mom, I got an interview tomorrow. And I'm like, good, I'm glad. I didn't tell her what I had done.
I feel like I wish you would have told me that.
I told you after the fact.
Yeah, I know.
I did.
But it makes you kind of like, man, do I really want to work for them?
It just really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Whether it was, somebody that had just that.
They accused me of stealing once.
No.
Yeah, they did.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding at all. I went and got a hot dog from so at the place I worked at a grocery store, and so they had a
hot food bar.
They had a hot food bar, but it was like you paid, and it was a integrity system, I guess. Like they had a box where you put $1 and get your hot dog. So I had gotten a hot dog there and maybe some chips. And I don't know if chips you have to go to the register for. It was something that was weird. Like the one thing I got, you had to go through the register for, and I didn't. I got a hot dog and I got chips. And I put my $3 or whatever into the box. I walked to the back. I eat my lunch. I'm like, okay, that was great, whatever. And then I go back to work. Fine. And then they pull me in the security office and they show me on the video camera like, we caught you. And I said, I put my money into the box. You can check the box. And then they check the box and they're like, oh, it's actually fine.
I had no idea because I'll tell you what, I used to do the same thing. I knew you were supposed to take the money up to the register, but it's stupid. If I can pay for my hot dog here,
right.
Why can't I pay for my chips here? Right? So I didn't want to waste my 30 minutes of lunch.
Right.
So I would get it and I'd put it all in that little slot.
I don't even know if I knew that or not. But then they were just like, moving forward now.
Nobody ever.
They're like, moving forward.
Just white lady.
Just go to the register.
I did not know that. But where was I going with this? Oh, we would get so packed in there sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially like right before Thanksgiving or, when there was a holiday. And your line would seriously be backed up. The registers were right in the front of the store, and seriously, all the way in the back wall. Sometimes the managers would come out and bag for us. That's how full it would get. And she told me, she could be working, and everybody else's line was backed up, and nobody would be in her line.
I don't even remember that either.
You told me that.
I believe that, too, though.
Now, I personally make it a point, if I go to the grocery store, and there's a black cashier, I'll go stand in that line to go through there, instead of going to somebody that has an open line.
Okay, Mom. Okay.
Little things I can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see the other questions. We might have to edit some of that down.
Like I said, we both can talk.
Yeah.
When we start talking together. And you notice the hands start going. Okay.
Okay, we did that one. What impact has your adoption had on other people that you think or that you've heard or?
I've had other people ask me about it that
Or
considering adoption, or, you know, I remember I had an aunt, an elderly relative who told me one time, she was in her 90s, and she used it as a dote on you guys when we would visit, and she said she didn't have any children, and she was a widow, and she said, I always wanted children, and I was never blessed with children, and my husband wanted to adopt, and I was afraid. She was afraid that she'd get a child that had like a mental illness, or I don't know what she was afraid of, but
I think there's a lot of fear.
And she said, I'm so sorry I was afraid, because you have such a wonderful family. And I thought that was sweet. There went my question.
Anyway, last question. I think we covered a lot of other stuff. If you could change one thing that you've done through the course of my adoption, or do one thing over now that you, based on what you know now, would you change anything? And if so, what would you change?
Oh, I think I would definitely be much more intentional about providing opportunities, being more proximate to like the city where it's more diverse, or all those things. You grew up in Lily White Lidditz, I know.
It's like less than 1% African American.
Which, we always thought it's such a great place to raise kids. And it was. But I never even thought about that, to be honest. And that's to my shame. Because I realized you could have benefited from that diversity. Had we gone to, a church that was more diverse. I remember when she was little, she asked me once when she grew up, did she have to stay Moravian or go to the Moravian church, which is where we go? And I said, no. Why? And she goes, which honestly, in the worldwide Moravian church, whites are a minority.
Yeah, but I never went to a Moravian
But in
church.
the U.S., that's not the case.
That wasn't majority
No.
white until high school.
Right. But I said, why wouldn't you want to go to the Moravian church? She goes, because you all go, oh, when you sing, and I want to like clap and say, amen, and stuff. Like, why didn't we go to Brightside Baptist or something? We should.
That's true. I said that early on. It was foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm. But then she started doing that when she was in college.
Yeah.
At college, and then when she'd come home, she didn't really go to church with us anymore. She went to Brightside Baptist in Lancaster City. So, yeah, I would definitely make more. I'd be more intentional about providing those opportunities. So I'm sorry that I didn't, but you've taught us so much.
True.
So anyway,
and I do want to say, and I'll say this too when I interview Dad, but like the one thing I can say about you and Dad that's different from other birth parents that I've heard about, not spoken to, but heard about from other transracial adoptees, is you and Dad, when I told you something was happening or was unfair, you guys always believed me. And you always, like, when you knew better, you did better. So
True.
I appreciate that. You weren't like, no, that's not really racism.
I remember you telling me every time I'd ask you, like, who a singer was or something. You say, Mom, I'm black. It doesn't mean I know every black singer. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Well, it's better than people being like, do you know Tyrone? Like, people get a Facebook request from a guy named Tyrone, and I have a database of every black person who exists, so I'm like, yeah, I know Tyrone from Lidditz. I grew up in Lidditz with you. Why would I know Tyrone?
Speaking of Tyrone, we have a friend named Tyrone who's black, and his wife is white, and he said that she'll say still, like, and he was laughing about it, but like, she'll say, oh, I met so-and-so, do you know them? Just because they were black. And he's like, I don't know every black person in Lancaster County. So I guess we're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
Now, so anyway.
Okay. Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome. I love you.
I love you too. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed making it with my mom. I got to know some things I didn't already know, like that my first job was super racist. Maybe. We'll see. I enjoyed talking to my mama about race and identity, about adoption in general. I hope it was helpful for you. If you have had this conversation with your mom, comment and tell me about it. If you haven't, comment and tell me if you would or you wouldn't. And yeah, I just love to hear from you. So make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to my series because new content comes out every other Wednesday. Until then, peace. Hey, and welcome to Hey TRA. Okay, that was really extra. Hi, hello, bonjour, hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Hey TRA. Hey. Ugh. Hey. Oh my gosh, it's so blech. Hey. Hey, hey, hi, hey, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Okay.